Derren Brown has been known for creating hypnotic effects that very few people seem able to fully explain. And in this video we are going to break down one such example where he alters the perception of a woman with a few simple suggestions, making her believe that he stole her soul.
Just here?
Yeah. This is really nice here, isn't it?
Lovely.
Can I talk to you a bit about what your beliefs are in terms of spirituality? With something like Reiki or psychic healing or crystal healing, if you don't think it's just a question of you sort of buy into it and believe in it and then it sort of works because you're expecting to, if you think it genuinely is more than that, how do you sort of grasp that?
I've experienced crystal healing. I've experienced Reiki, which is using universal energy, which probably a lot of people would be very skeptical to believe in,
Sure.
and you know, but I'm basing my beliefs in facts, you know, and things that I have seen, how they've created a progress in my life or how things have shifted. I've seen this well, the results, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So to get it back at the foundations, covert hypnosis or any kind of covert induction is all about pre-framing, or what we call the pre-talk. How do you condition the mind of the person to go into a trance? By the way you explain what is going to happen before it happens. There was a great saying by Paul Václavic in the School of Communication of Palo Alto. He said, you cannot not communicate, and I would make the claim here that as soon as you talk about hypnosis, you cannot not hypnotize in some way when you're talking about hypnosis, or when you are talking about any kind of altered state of consciousness, as it is the case here when he's asking her, how do you know it's not just a belief, all the magical crystals, Reiki, all those energetic stuff, how do you know it is not just a belief? That question is kind of a covert question to make her access her own trance state when she gets herself into one of those altered states of consciousness by maybe doing some meditation with crystals or whatever she's doing. He's eliciting her processes to get back into that state even before he does any kind of induction in the more traditional way of doing it. And when you elicit such processes, the answer of the person really does not matter. Whatever they say, the only thing is that they get back into that state as they are describing it. Remember, the more they describe it, the more they are going to fully associate emotionally and mentally to what they felt like and going to dive back there. And to me, she's definitely in a trance state by the look on her face. When the face of somebody is really relaxed, their eyes are kind of defocused and their jaw is kind of loosened up, this is a clear sign the person is getting more and more into that type of relaxed trance state that the hypnotist is looking for.
Something I'd like to try with you, and this is why I got you here specifically to talk about belief, and it uses an area of belief that, I don't know, maybe is less fashionable than some of the beliefs that have been adopted in our culture now as mainstream religion seems to be dying out. Would you stand up for me for a second?
Sure.
And just come around there, and just like that, just there for me. That's great. And take your hand, and just rest that there. Excellent. That's great, and you can just stay like that for a while I show you what this is.
And we are getting here into the first hypnotic phenomenon with the Armlevitation and some catalepsy of the body. It is important to understand that whenever somebody is hypnotizing you, the trance states happen usually in a sequence, and to verify we have passed the first level, we test with one of those effects. So if we want to get the person into hallucinating somebody, getting first into some catalepsy or some amnesia is a good barometer to know if they have actually reached the previous state before getting deeper into the trance process. So using that arm levitation, which is one of the most common effects of catalepsy, when the arm is just staying like this and the person hypnotized does not even feel any strength, any pressure, any tension, they just feel loosened up and relaxed, but their arm is staying still like this. And it is reinforced to me by the command stay there for a second, it might be an implied suggestion. Her body is going to stay still. And high chance, I would say, that he has done some preconditioning even before the video started to test her receptivity, because she's getting there pretty fast, I would say. So he probably did a few things, not deep hypnosis before the video, but some test just to see how fast she might go into a trance, and preparing her mind to access at least that first level of hypnotic state more easily once the recording was going to start. Also important, when he's touching her and moving her around, I would bet that his grip was pretty tight and firm on her body when he's touching her neck and her shoulders, because the art of suggestion is not only through the things you say, it is also through how you behave. You can suggest things by the way you look at somebody, by the way you move around somebody, and by the way you touch somebody. For example, if I touch you by just brushing slightly your shoulder, your unconscious mind may receive quite different information than if I hold you pretty strongly and pull you or push you very tightly. You won't receive the same information and you won't react to my touching in the same exact way. So if she was already getting in some trance state and then he's pulling her like tightly, that is an even stronger suggestion of stay here still and don't move anymore. And then finally, the weighing of the hand. You basically measure how deep somebody is in that at least first state of trance by noticing how fast do they move their hand and how quickly do they obey your suggestion when you say stay, keep that here, not moving anymore. Whenever you say something like this, notice how fast do they not move anymore. That will be a clear indication of them being in the state you want them to be into, the trance state. And if they are still for like 5-6 seconds moving around, then they are definitely not in that state yet. They might get into it, but they are not there yet.
It's great, and you can just stay like that for a while. Well, I'll show you what this is. I'm going to show you something involving this, which is a doll. But the thing about this doll is that it doesn't, as it is, it doesn't have a soul. So we need to give it a soul for this to work, and that's what I'm going to do now. By taking this. You happy if I use your ring for a second? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Just allow that to sort of go floppy down there. That's great. Thank you. And the ring goes into the center here, and this makes it a soul for the doll. Just like that. Now it has a soul, and your soul, if you like. Stay there for a second for me. See, I just think it's interesting for me that we tend to believe what makes us feel good. If we decide that something is nice or makes us feel nice, that we decide that it's true, which, you know, you could argue devalues the idea of truth terribly. Can you feel anything at the moment? What are you aware of?
My legs feel really heavy.
Can you move them? Can you move your feet? No?
I'm trying.
Yeah, it's interesting, you see?
Right here, the monologue about feeling good and the truth and some other abstract terms he's using, to me that is just a deepening of the trance state. Here he is amplifying and kind of getting her deeper into that state. And also when you turn around and lose the direct eye contact with the person, that is useful to keep talking just to make sure they keep reacting to your suggestions instead of just getting out of trance because their conscious mind feels like it is not time anymore to be hypnotized. So keep talking to maintain them in that state. But something that caught my attention in that part is if she had been seeing him tying the legs and at the same time she feels like she cannot move anymore, that would make sense. The fact she is not seeing him doing that and that he's not saying directly don't move your legs and only asking her what do you feel and she talks about her legs, that is something on which I'm not quite sure of what it means. My idea is that the catalepsy of the legs is one of the most common things happening in the beginning of the trance state, especially in stage hypnotism. So maybe he's just using the natural response most people have in that scenario, and with some theatrical performance with the voodoo doll, letting it appear that she cannot move because he has been tying the doll, whereas it might have just been a normal response of most people getting into a trance at that level. And he's also reinforcing multiple times the stay there command, which might reinforce any catalepsy she was feeling so far, either in her legs, in her arm, in her neck, anywhere in her body. Maybe if she hadn't talked about her legs, he could have added some more suggestions to make sure that part of her body gets stiff and still before the rest.
You can't move them. You can move your arms, yes?
Yeah.
Just flap your arms a bit for me, just do that, thank you. Just so you can see you can move them for a moment. And then watch. What happens now? Can you move your arms?
No.
You trying?
Yeah.
Okay, now look at me. This will be perfectly comfortable, all right? There's nothing unpleasant about this, perfectly comfortable. I want you to count. Just try and count all the way backwards from 10 to 0 for me, out loud.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Let that close. Can you talk?
Here we have another example of what I was talking about earlier, because when he asks her to move her arms, she's reacting quite fast and with a quite wide movement. When you just say one thing and the person reacts right away with a physical reaction, then you know you have deep rapport with their unconscious mind, and that might happen through movements if you ask for movements, but also happen through their facial expression. If you ask them to remember something joyful in their life and their face lightens up at the time you say this, that means you have a really strong, deep rapport with that person, and that as a result you can escalate the suggestions more easily. Then another really interesting factor, just after he tied her arms, metaphorically, before the mouth thing, he's touching her shoulder again and reassuring her that everything is going to go well, that she's going to feel good, because just before you make something as strong as preventing somebody from speaking hypnotically, that might make many people freak out when they notice you can have that kind of power through your suggestions. If they freak out, what's usually going to happen is that they will get out of trance and not want anything anymore. That is the most normal response. So there is a lot of trust that has to be established beforehand, and he's amplifying that trust just before firing that kind of effect that can be quite troubling for many people. I think at some point it was called safety locks, putting safety locks in the mind of the person so that they don't panic, or they keep being reminded that anything you say is said for them in their best interest and not to cause any harm.
See, for me, it's all about questioning, I think, and not taking things at face value. Like at the moment you can't speak, but the only reason why you can't speak is that you believe that you can't speak because of what I'm telling you. And the interesting thing is that if I tell you you can speak, all that does is gives you permission to question that belief, and then you find that you can speak. Can't you? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what we believe isn't necessarily real at any level. I mean, this certainly isn't, it's not even a real voodoo doll, you know, and even the real voodoo dolls were used for healing, not for putting curses on people. But what I did, I got you to invest in that belief, and one of the ways I got you to do that was by investing something of yourself in it, like your ring. Whereas in fact, there's nothing in there. There is no ring in there. I didn't put your ring in there. You know, your ring's still on your hand. Yeah?
How did that happen?
You alright?
So the fact that she can still speak, as he says, she can speak in response to his suggestions and not in response to the doll itself, proves that it was more his influence that caused all of that rather than the actual puppet or the actual object he used as a divergent to make it look like there was some supernatural thing going on. Then the trick with the ring is more a sleight of hand trick, usually used by pickpockets or guys who have been trained into doing pickpocket. And I won't reveal how it works, I'm not supposed to, out of the magician's code, but you have probably guessed how it works, some of you at least, I think. But basically, this is what you can do with the power of the mind, with the power of suggestion. And if you are interested in using those things therapeutically to help people to access the kind of states that can get them to feel better about their life and get past any kind of trauma, any kind of past issues, then you can find a method down below I had created at some point with that intent in mind of allowing people to change despite their own blockages, inner issues. How can you conversationally anchor a state in which they will be more receptive to change so that they resist less their own mind? It's not about resisting your suggestions, it is about the resistance people have even when they want to change something in their life, and somehow some part of their mind, of their ego or whatever, is stopping them from actually embodying that positive change they are seeking. So in that method you will discover how to get past that kind of resistance, how to use conversational anchoring to always get the person back into a state where they agree more easily with anything you would like to make them change about, because they have been asking for it obviously. And waiting for this, I tell you thank you for watching and see you soon in the next video.